The valley was quiet, almost too quiet. A soft wind moved through the jagged rocks and broken trees, carrying the smell of smoke and ash. At the center of the valley lay the dragon, enormous and old, its golden scales dull and cracked. Each breath it took shook the ground slightly, and its eyes, usually fierce and bright, were dim and cloudy. The dragon had lived for thousands of years, seen empires rise and fall, and watched countless battles. But now it was dying. The sky above was a pale gray, the sun struggling to shine through thick clouds. The dragon's wings were folded against its body, and its long tail lay still in the dirt. Around it stood a group of alien creatures, followers of the dragon for many generations. They were tall and thin, with pale skin and glowing eyes, wearing flowing robes that shimmered with strange symbols. Some were scholars who had studied the dragon for decades. Others were warriors loyal to the dragon's strength and wisdom. They had all come to the valley when they sensed the dragon's end was near. The dragon's head lifted slowly. Its eyes searched the faces around it. A low, rumbling sound came from deep in its chest, a sound like rolling thunder. The alien stepped back, unsure if the dragon could speak. After a long pause, the dragon's voice came, soft but clear, echoing in the valley. "Find the human who knows my name," it said. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Humans were rare in their galaxy and most of them were unknown to them. Why would an ancient dragon care about a human? The scholars whispered among themselves, trying to remember any story or record that mentioned humans. The warriors frowned, tense and protective, but they too were puzzled. The dragon let out a weak sigh and closed its eyes. Its massive chest rose and fell slowly. "Do not fail me," it whispered. Its words were not loud, but they carried a weight that pressed down on every heart in the valley. The followers bowed deeply, showing respect to a creature that had ruled the skies for centuries. They promised silently that they would carry out its final wish. For a long moment there was silence. Only the wind moved, rustling the leaves and stirring the dust. Then one of the scholars, an older alien with pale blue eyes, spoke. "But how do we find a human? There are so few and none that we know personally. How can we know who truly knows the dragon's name?" The dragon opened its eyes slightly, just enough to reveal a flicker of golden light. "Trust the signs," it said in a voice that was barely audible. "Do not underestimate the one who carries my name." The aliens felt a shiver run through them. The dragon had never given vague instructions before. It had always been proud, strong and clear. Now in its last moments, it spoke in riddles. But they understood one thing clearly: the human the dragon sought was special. More than any scientist, warrior or diplomat. More than anyone in their vast galaxy. The dragon moved slightly, lifting its head higher. Its eyes shone faintly with memory and wisdom. "I have seen the end of many worlds, yet one human may change all," it said. Its voice grew weaker, fading with each word. The warriors stepped closer, fearing the dragon's final moments might come at any second. The scholars took out small devices recording the dragon's words, trying to remember every syllable. Every word was precious, a treasure of history and knowledge. The dragon's name itself, the one the human must know, was spoken only once, softly like a secret. The wind grew colder and the clouds above turned darker. The dragon's breath became shallow. The aliens could feel the life slipping away from it. And yet, even in its pain, even in its final moments, there was a calm in the dragon's eyes, a peace that came from knowing it had left a mission behind. It stretched its wings slightly, a movement more of habit than strength. The scales rattled and cracked with emotion. Then it lowered its head and exhaled one last deep breath, a sound like a mountain collapsing. Its eyes closed fully and the valley grew still. The ancient dragon had passed. For a long time the aliens did not move. They stayed silent, staring at the massive body of the dragon. The wind whispered over the valley, as if carrying the dragon's spirit across the lands. Finally, one of the scholars spoke again, his voice trembling. "We must find this human. The dragon's last command cannot be ignored." The warriors nodded, gripping their weapons and looking toward the horizon. They were ready for battle, for a long journey, but they knew it would not be an easy task. Humans were unpredictable, clever, and mysterious. And yet, they were the key to fulfilling the dying dragon's wish. As the sun began to break through the clouds, shining faintly on the valley, the group of aliens turned toward the path ahead. Their mission was clear. They would search the galaxy for the human who knew the dragon's name. And they would not stop until they found him. The valley remained quiet. The wind moved softly through the rocks. And somewhere, far away, a human existed, unaware of the destiny that was slowly reaching toward him. The alien delegation left the valley quietly. Their mission was clear, but the path ahead was uncertain. They moved through vast deserts, over shining cities and across deep oceans, searching for the human who knew the dragon's name. Every planet they visited brought new challenges. Most humans they met were scientists, explorers, or leaders, but none of them recognized the name the dragon had whispered. The aliens began to feel frustrated. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Every new clue ended in disappointment. The scholars studied ancient texts, holograms, and historical records, but the name appeared only once, softly, in a forgotten legend. The warriors trained constantly, ready for danger, but they had no enemy to fight. All they had was hope that a human, ordinary or extraordinary, existed somewhere in the galaxy. One day they arrived at a large space station orbiting a small blue planet. It was a busy place, filled with traders, travelers, and workers of all kinds. Humans moved among aliens, doing jobs that required intelligence, skill, and sometimes courage. The scholars walked carefully through the corridors, asking about the dragon, its last words, and any human who might know its name. They received polite smiles, confused looks, and sometimes laughter. No one seemed to understand. The delegation grew weary. Their hope was fading. The warriors whispered that maybe the dragon's final command was impossible to fulfill. Perhaps the human the dragon sought was long gone, or maybe it had never existed. Still, one older scholar refused to give up. He studied the worker lists of the station carefully, looking at every human, no matter how small their role seemed. It was then that they noticed him. A janitor, young and quiet, moved among the corridors with a mop and bucket. He was ordinary in every way, plain clothes, simple tools, and a soft voice. He cleaned the floors, polished the metal walls, and swept away dust with careful, even movements. No one paid him much attention. Most people barely knew his name. Yet the scholar paused, sensing something unusual. There was a calm confidence in the janitor's eyes, a gentle awareness of everything around him. The aliens approached him slowly. "Human," the scholar said, bowing slightly. "We are searching for someone who knows the name of an ancient dragon." The janitor looked up from his work, tilting his head in curiosity. "An ancient dragon?" he asked, his voice calm and steady. "I might know what you mean. Tell me the name." The scholar hesitated, then spoke the dragon's name. The janitor's eyes widened slightly, but he said nothing at first. He simply looked down at the floor, then back at the aliens. "I know this name," he said finally. "I learned it as a child, from a story my grandfather told me. He said it was a name that should be remembered, even if the world forgot it." The aliens were stunned. They had expected scientists, warriors, or scholars, humans of importance or power. But this ordinary janitor had known the dragon's name all along. How could such a simple, quiet man hold something so significant? The janitor smiled faintly. "Why are you looking for me?" he asked. His voice had no fear, only curiosity. The scholar stepped forward. "The dragon is dying," he said softly. "Its last command was to find the human who knows its name. You are that human. The dragon has passed its final wish to you." The janitor's expression changed. He did not laugh or panic. Instead, he felt a strange sense of purpose. Something inside him stirred, a feeling he had never felt before. He realized that his ordinary life, sweeping floors and cleaning corridors, had prepared him for this moment. His care for small things, his quiet observation of the world, had made him ready to meet the impossible. The aliens explained what had to happen next. They would take him to the dragon's resting place in the hidden valley. There he would fulfill the dragon's last wish and discover its final gift. The janitor nodded, setting aside his mop and bucket. He did not need armor or weapons. His heart, his courage, and his mind were enough. The journey back to the valley was long. The aliens traveled through asteroid fields, across frozen moons, and over seas of molten metal. The janitor watched everything quietly, learning from the stars, the planets, and the silent beauty of the galaxy. Even the warriors began to admire him. He had no special training, yet he carried himself with confidence and calm that few experienced fighters possessed. During the journey, the janitor told stories of his childhood, of his grandfather, and of the legends he had grown up hearing. He spoke of small acts of kindness, courage in the face of fear, and the importance of remembering things that others might forget. The aliens listened, surprised by how wise such a simple human could be. Finally, they reached the hidden valley. The place was quiet as it had been when the dragon had passed. The wind stirred the dust gently, and the sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the scales and the great body of the ancient dragon. The janitor approached slowly, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. He did not know what would happen next, but he understood that his life had changed forever. The alien stepped back, allowing him to come closer. He knelt beside the dragon's massive head, feeling the echoes of its life and wisdom. The valley seemed to hum with energy, as if the dragon's spirit was still there, waiting for him. The janitor whispered the dragon's name softly, almost as if speaking to himself. And for the first time the air seemed to shimmer, the valley alive with the memory of the great creature that had once ruled the skies. He had found the dragon not because of strength or skill, but because he had always cared, always remembered, and always believed in small important things. The aliens watched in awe, realizing that humans, even the simplest ones, could be extraordinary in ways they could never predict. And the janitor, once unnoticed in a busy space station, understood that he had a role far greater than he had ever imagined. The janitor stepped carefully into the valley, the wind carrying the faint smell of ash and stone. The alien delegation followed, keeping their distance. The dragon's massive body lay motionless in the center, sunlight reflecting faintly off its golden scales. Even in death, it seemed alive, as if the valley itself held its memory. The janitor's heart pounded. He had never imagined he would come here, standing before a creature of legend. And yet he felt no fear. Instead, there was a strange sense of calm, a quiet understanding that this was his purpose. He knelt slowly beside the dragon, careful not to touch it roughly. His hands hovered above the scales, feeling their cold smoothness. One of the alien scholars, the elder with pale blue eyes, spoke softly. "Human, you must speak the name. The dragon's last wish depends on you." The janitor took a deep breath. He had said the name once already during the journey, but this was different. Now he felt the weight of centuries, of legends, and of a life that stretched across the galaxy. He whispered the name, softly, almost reverently. A shiver ran through the valley. The ground trembled slightly beneath them, and the air seemed to hum with energy. The dragon's eyes, though clouded and dim, flickered faintly with golden light. It was as if it recognized him, as if it had waited all this time for this moment. The janitor felt a strange warmth in his chest, a feeling he could not explain. It was not fear nor excitement, but something deeper, almost like understanding. The dragon's spirit, though weakened and fading, seemed to touch him, whispering through the wind and the valley itself. The alien warriors whispered among themselves, uneasy. They had expected this human to be brave, clever, or strong, but not in this way. The janitor had no weapons, no armor, no formal training. Yet, standing before the dragon, he radiated a quiet power, the kind that did not come from force, but from heart and courage. The dragon stirred slightly. Its massive head lifted a little, and a low rumble filled the air. The sound was not frightening, but full of wisdom and age. It spoke, weakly, its voice a deep echo that seemed to come from the valley itself. "Oh, my name," it said. "You are the one I sought." The janitor nodded, kneeling still. "I know your name," he replied. "I learned it long ago. Your story was told to me and I never forgot it." The dragon's eyes glowed faintly, brighter than before. "Few, remember, humans, understand more than they show," it said. Its words were slow, labored, but filled with meaning. "You are small in appearance, but great in spirit." The janitor felt a lump in his throat. He had always been ordinary, unnoticed, overlooked in the busy world of the space station. But now, standing before this ancient being, he realized that greatness was not about status, wealth, or power. It was about care, courage, and memory. It was about noticing what others ignore and protecting what others forget. He reached out slowly, placing a hand gently on the dragon's cold scales. The warmth from its spirit seemed to flow into him, not as fire but as a soft, steady energy. Memories flickered before his eyes. Battles the dragon had fought, worlds it had seen rise and fall, moments of kindness it had given to creatures too small to remember. And within those memories he felt a message, a gift. Humans had a role to play not just in their own world but in the galaxy itself. The aliens watched in awe. They had served the dragon for centuries, but they had never understood it fully. They had thought strength and wisdom were everything. Now they saw that humility, curiosity, and kindness, traits they often overlooked in humans, were as important as any sword or spell. The dragon's wings shivered slightly, like a last gesture of pride. Its tail twitched gently, and the golden light in its eyes pulsed once more. "Protect, remember, carry, forward," it whispered. The voice faded, but the meaning lingered, wrapping around the janitor like a blanket of warmth and purpose. The janitor straightened, feeling both humbled and empowered. He understood now why the dragon had chosen him. Not because he was strong or famous, but because he had listened, cared, and remembered. The dragon's life, its wisdom, and its hope were now in his hands. He turned to the alien delegation. "I understand," he said quietly. "I will carry this. I will honor it. Not for power, not for fame, but because it is right." The scholars nodded, their eyes wide with respect. The warriors bowed deeply, realizing that they had witnessed something greater than battle or victory. They had seen the true heart of a human. For a long moment, the valley was silent. The wind moved gently, as if the dragon itself was still breathing through the trees and stones. The janitor knelt for a moment longer, speaking the name softly again, letting the words linger in the air. And then, with a deep breath, he rose. He was still a janitor, still a quiet human among many, but now he carried something greater than himself. He carried the last command of an ancient dragon, a responsibility that no one else could bear. And in that moment, the aliens understood. Humans, even the simplest ones, could do what no one expected, could rise to challenges that seemed impossible, and could carry hope across the stars. The janitor took a step forward, leaving the dragon's side. His life had changed forever, but he would meet it quietly, steadily, like he always had. And the valley, once silent with loss, now seemed alive with possibility. Somewhere in the galaxy, other humans were watching, unaware of their potential. But this one human, this ordinary janitor, had already proven that greatness often comes from the most unexpected places. The valley was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt alive. The wind stirred the grass and dust, carrying a faint warmth, almost like a heartbeat. The janitor stood beside the dragon, feeling the immense presence of a being who had ruled the skies for centuries. Though its body was still, the dragon's spirit lingered, reaching out like a soft, invisible current. The air shimmered faintly around it, like sunlight on water. The aliens gave him space, forming a protective circle around the valley. They watched, unsure what would happen next. They had seen powerful humans in history, humans who fought wars or built empires. But this was different. This was quiet. This was subtle. Yet the energy in the air made every alien feel small, as if the valley itself recognized the importance of what was happening. The janitor knelt before the dragon, whispering its name again. It was more than a word. It was a bridge between life and legacy, between past and future. "I know your name," he said softly, "and I will remember it." The dragon stirred. A soft rumble came from deep within its chest, vibrating through the stones beneath them. Then, slowly, the dragon lifted its head and opened its eyes. They glowed with a warm, golden light, brighter than before, as if acknowledging the human before it. "You have listened? You understand? You are ready," the dragon said, its voice weak but strong in its meaning. The janitor felt a warmth spread through his chest. It was not fire, not heat, but a soft energy that made him feel connected to something larger than himself. For a moment he saw flashes of the dragon's long life, soaring over mountains, fighting storms, protecting its kin, witnessing civilizations rise and fall. Each memory came with a lesson: patience, courage, respect for life, and the importance of choices. The janitor absorbed it all, not as knowledge alone, but as understanding. The dragon's wings twitched slightly, the faintest motion, and the tail shifted like a gentle wave. "Carry my name, carry my story," it whispered. "The universe may forget, but you will remember and protect." The janitor nodded. He did not fully understand how he would do it, but he knew he could. He felt a bond forming, a connection that went beyond words. The dragon's wisdom, its vision, and its hope were now part of him. It was a gift, not of power, but of responsibility. The scholars whispered among themselves. "I have studied dragons for decades," one said, his voice trembling, "but I have never seen anything like this. This human, he carries the spirit of the dragon, even without training, without glory." The warriors were silent, watching the janitor closely. They realized that true strength was not always measured by size, weapon, or skill. Sometimes it was measured by care, understanding, and courage. And in this human, they saw that kind of strength shining quietly, steadily. The dragon's eyes flickered, then fixed on the janitor fully. "You are small, in form, but vast, in spirit. Remember the forgotten. Protect the weak. Teach the lost." Its voice grew fainter with each word, but the meaning was clear. The dragon was passing its legacy, its final command, to the human. The janitor reached out and placed a hand gently on the dragon's head. A soft vibration ran through him, like the echo of a heartbeat. He could feel the dragon's life, its memories, and its wisdom flowing into him. It was not overwhelming, but it was enough to make him feel connected to the dragon in a way no one else could. He realized then that he was not chosen because he was the strongest or the cleverest. He was chosen because he noticed, because he remembered, because he cared. The dragon exhaled one last time, a deep, rumbling sound that shook the valley slightly. Its eyes dimmed, but a faint golden glow remained in them, like the last spark of a dying star. Then finally it was still. Its mission complete. Its legacy entrusted to the janitor. For a moment no one spoke. The wind moved softly through the valley, carrying the echo of the dragon's life and the weight of its last words. The janitor knelt there quietly, letting the silence sink in, feeling the responsibility pressing on him like a gentle, steady weight. Finally he stood. The sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light on the dragon's scales. He looked at the aliens, calm but resolute. "I understand," he said. "I will carry this. I will protect what must be remembered. I will honor the dragon's wish." The scholar nodded, eyes wide with awe. "You are extraordinary," he said softly. "We have served the dragon all our lives, and yet, you, a simple human, hold its final gift." The warriors bowed deeply, understanding what it truly meant. The janitor smiled faintly, not proud, not boastful, just aware. He was ordinary, but that ordinary self now carried something extraordinary. Something that could change lives, worlds, and perhaps even the galaxy itself. The wind rustled through the valley, moving over the stones and the dragon's body. For a moment, the world felt alive, connected, as if every being who had ever known the dragon was there, whispering their gratitude. The janitor felt a quiet power, not of fire or strength, but of hope and purpose. He turned to the aliens. "Let's go," he said softly. "There is work to do. The dragon's story must continue, and the things forgotten must be remembered." And so, the janitor, ordinary in appearance but extraordinary in spirit, walked out of the valley. Behind him, the dragon rested in peace, its final wish fulfilled. Ahead of him, the universe stretched wide, full of unknown challenges, unknown lives, and unknown opportunities. He was ready. The janitor left the valley with the alien delegation behind him, walking slowly at first. Every step felt heavier than before, not because of weight, but because of the responsibility now resting on his shoulders. He had never asked for adventure or power or fame. He had only ever lived quietly, helping where he could and remembering what others forgot. Yet now, the last command of an ancient dragon lay in his hands, and he could feel it pulsing like a heartbeat in his chest. The journey back to the space station was quiet at first. The aliens watched him closely, unsure what a simple human could do with the wisdom of a being older than their records. The scholar with pale blue eyes spoke softly. "We have seen humans before, clever and brave, but none like this. You carry something extraordinary even without knowing it." The janitor smiled faintly. He did not feel extraordinary. He only felt aware. Aware of the worlds around him, the creatures who depended on kindness, and the small choices that could ripple into great change. He realized that greatness was not about weapons or authority. It was about memory, responsibility, and care. The dragon had known that, and now so did he. When they arrived at the space station, life seemed normal. Traders hustled through corridors, machines hummed, and humans and aliens went about their daily work. To anyone else, he was still the same janitor, mopping floors and cleaning panels, unnoticed and ordinary. But he knew better now. He carried the dragon's gift, the knowledge that ordinary actions, quiet choices, and a caring heart could shape destinies. The aliens were cautious. They expected him to do something remarkable, something obvious. But he did not rush to power, nor demand attention. Instead, he returned to his small tasks, sweeping the halls and polishing floors, quietly observing the people around him. Yet even in these simple acts there was a change. He noticed what others missed: a tired worker who needed rest, a student struggling with learning, a small disagreement that could be healed with a few kind words. Slowly, those around him began to notice the difference. People listened to him when he spoke. His words were simple, but they carried a weight that no one could explain. He offered guidance without arrogance, courage without display, and wisdom without claiming it. The alien delegation watched in awe. They had served the dragon for centuries, but now they saw that humans, even the most ordinary, could teach them something new. One day, a young human approached him, holding a small device broken beyond repair. "Can you help me fix this?" the child asked. The janitor smiled and nodded. He did not just repair the device. He explained how it worked, teaching patience and care. The child left with eyes wide, inspired not just by the repair, but by the quiet strength of someone who noticed what others ignored. The message of the dragon spread, quietly at first. People began to talk about the janitor who seemed ordinary but had a presence that changed the world around him. Not through force, not through power, but through subtle acts of care, attention, and wisdom. The alien delegation realized that the dragon had been right. Humans could carry more than anyone expected. They could inspire, guide, and change outcomes in ways that could not be measured by machines or weapons. As months passed, the janitor continued his simple life, but everywhere he went, small miracles followed. Communities worked together better because of his guidance. Aliens and humans learned to cooperate because he understood both worlds. Problems that seemed impossible were solved quietly, without fanfare, by someone who had only ever cared to do the right thing. The scholar spoke to him one evening, standing under the stars. "You have done more than I could have imagined. The dragon's last command, you have fulfilled it in ways we could never foresee." The janitor shook his head. "I did nothing extraordinary," he said simply. "I just remembered. I just cared. That is what the dragon wanted. That is what any of us can do." But the scholar knew it was extraordinary. Not everyone could carry the legacy of an ancient dragon. Not everyone could inspire hope without wielding power. Yet here he was, a human janitor, ordinary to the eye, extraordinary to the universe. Time passed and the dragon became a legend once more. Not for battles or fire, but for its final lesson. Greatness often comes from the unexpected. The janitor, still sweeping corridors and cleaning panels, became the living proof of that lesson. Aliens, humans, and other beings who heard of him remembered his story. And slowly, quietly, the universe learned that ordinary humans could achieve the impossible. One day as he polished the floor of the station, the janitor looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other dragons had once lived and perhaps still did. And somewhere out there, humans would rise again to meet the unexpected, carrying courage, wisdom, and heart. The janitor smiled, knowing the truth of it all. He had no crown, no army, no great titles. Yet he had done something far greater than most could ever imagine. He had remembered, he had cared, and he had carried the last command of a dragon across the galaxy. And in that simple, quiet way he changed the universe.